This is She That Exists, or She That Exists, her story channel. And I titled this Walking Away from Darkness and Creating Your Own Happy. I'm not really sure where I want to start. I'll just start with the right now, the present, eternal right now moment. I'm in the process of creating my own happy. And I want to share with others my process of deliberate conscious creation, so others can consciously create for their life as well. Um, and then I'll share a little bit of my backstory. However, right now I have to jump up and turn on the fan because it's hot. Hold on. So, a little bit about my backstory. Let's see. In 2012, I started what some people would call like waking up. Um, and for me, it was getting memories back of my life and realizing that I was real and that I mattered and that I had purpose and that my life had meaning and that I was here for just something, um, and that I had gifts, that I had talents, and that my gifts and talents were not in vain, that I was actually here for a purpose and that my life mattered. And before that, I spent my life being dominated and controlled and mentally and ritually abused, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically by my biological mother and father. And then also spent time being mentally and emotionally, spiritually, and ritually abused by someone that I called my husband that I was married to. However, now hindsight being 2020, I am seeing that that husband, his name is Scott, and more on Scott later, that that was never a real marriage, and that he is an actual cultist, and he is a part of an organized, I don't want to say like religion, because it's more of like a cult, um, to where um, the guys in the group, they do everything in secret, and they keep everything hidden and secret from the women and the wives, and they indoctrinate the children from a very young early age with untruths and perversions, and teach children to lie and to keep secrets. And what they're doing with teaching the children perversions of life and teaching the children how to keep secrets is they're creating enmity between the mother and the children, which is anti-natural and against nature and against creator God and the source of all of life. I'll go deeper into that, about how family is creator's original jurisdiction, and actually family is the traditional trinity or the Godhead. Um, because this is how creator created life to be sacred. And so when you have something coming and perverting the sacredness of life, and the sacredness of all of existence, that is a good way for you to know that you're involved in something that's not natural or that could be occult. My daughter, she came to me in 2016 and started talking to me and telling me some things that Scott had put her through. And I immediately called him. We were divorced at the time, and we'd been divorced for a while, and confronted him about these issues because, he abused me. However, never in a million years did I think that he would abuse my daughter. And whenever I did, he threatened to have me murdered. He also threatened to have me placed as a political prisoner of war, which it's his war inside of his head, right? Because we know that everything is consciousness, and thought is cause. And So I started doing a lot of research, and I started learning a lot. I started, seeking Creator God for answers. I started going within a lot, because I had no idea what was going on. I just knew that my life had become endangered, and I was told that if I didn't put my daughter on a plane, I would be murdered. She was 11 or 12 years old at the time. Um, and literally, my life became a Lifetime movie. Um, Organized criminals started coming into my life. I later learned that Scott, the ex in my story, who is a criminal and a fraud and cartel, and a criminal, flat out criminal, and a con artist and a fraud. I later learned that he was a part of an organization called Free and Accepted Masons. And I've created several videos on the Free and Accepted Masons. And I mean, I'm happy for any real Free and Accepted Masons who are not intel operatives or predatorial types, to come and talk to me about Scott, being a free and accepted Mason, and for them to approach him and confront him about the crimes that he has committed on me and my daughter. Because the free and accepted Mason motto is "We make good men better." However, good men do not threaten to murder their former wives and their child's mother. And they do not mind control and brainwash and terrorize and torture innocent children who are 11 and 12 years old, and just completely terrorize and traumatize women and children. So if there are like any good free and accepted Masons with a conscience who still recognize themselves as soul, I would love it if they would approach Scott, and let him know that he needs to send my daughter back to me, or that, he needs to at least like contact me, because now I'm cold. Hold on. This has been going on for 5+ years now. Um, I want to add that this has been going on for 5 years now, and I've held the space of grace and love and mercy for Scott, to contact me. And I've also reached out to his associate, Steve Plowman, to have him contact me. But they're both like a part of this like brotherhood. And Steve is my second cousin, and he told me that sex with children and pedophilia and incest is normal, and doing ritual sexual abuses on children is normal. And if I didn't accept it, as normal, then I couldn't be a part of the family. And I said, that's fine. Okay. That's not normal. And I don't want to be a part of any family that does that. And that was one of the last times that we talked. And so if there are any free and accepted Masons that would, go to Scott in like a brotherly way and talk to him about this and have him do right by me, and my daughter, um, that would be really cool. I've not yet have met any free and accepted Masons with a conscience, and that's because they all take their oaths and vows, to protect the brotherhood, and like they protect each other when they commit crimes on women and children. And so, from what I've experienced with the free and accepted Masons, is it's not an organization; it's an organized crime syndicate. Um, who commits ritual abuse and domestic terrorization on anybody who finds out about their secrets or the things that they do and do not want to comply. I mean, for me, I was already divorced when I found out that Scott was a free and accepted Mason. However, um, I've not seen my daughter since she started telling me their secrets. Um, and the secrets that she shared were like literally abuses to her. And no child should have to live in that type of culture, especially when I prayed for her and I asked God for her, and God answered my prayers. And I've always known that she has a wonderful calling on her life for God, to serve in the kingdom of God for God's purposes. Um, and basically, I've been domestically terrorized with my daughter for over 5 years now, and Scott will not answer any of my phone calls. He will not answer any of my emails. He targeted me to have me held hostage in a trafficking house when he knew that I was going um, to a national human rights tribunal to claim my daughter after I claimed my nationality. And then he sent me all these emails telling me he wasn't going, or not emails, text, telling me he was not going to let me get by with claiming my daughter and saving my daughter's life. He's obviously possessed by some type of lower entity of darkness. Um, but he did tell me in 2016 that he was leaving his heart. Apparently, the Free and Accepted Mason organization, or the Jesuits, or whoever his hierarchy is in the cartel and the trafficking industry. Apparently, they had already consumed his mind to where he couldn't even think for himself or take any actions on his own. And I let him know that he had to live in his heart because our daughter needed a father who lived in his heart. So I begged him and begged him and begged him to stay in his heart. And those of us who are healthy, we know that once you leave your heart and you're not living in your heart with an open heart, that you are susceptible to, lower entities, or, different types of influences that are not pure and are not good. But he was weak, and he has no backbone, and he has no spine. And I struggled with this with him, and I'm just calling it a fake marriage, because if it were real, he would have already done right by me. And I'm learning that these Free and Accepted Masons, that a lot of them have, let's just say, sexual perversions to where they don't love women, and they have other preferences. And so they just marry women so they can look like they're straight in society. And I have a real issue with that, because if they're gay, or they're into children, or other sexual choices, then they just need to live that way, and they need to not marry women like me who love God, and who honor family as sacred, and see having a child and a family is one of the greatest gifts that creator could ever bless us with. And now I'm about to start crying, because they don't realize that they're ruining lives. And that's why I titled this Happiness, because Scott David Schaefer of Omaha, Nebraska, and Millard, Nebraska, one of the presidents um, and investors and auto cartel. That's one of the things about these criminals and cultists, is they have to put the truth of who they are, like, out for the public to see. But he's terrorized my life. He has tortured me with my daughter. He is evading the truth, and he's evading service of our national court case. I went and I stood before a national tribunal, which, that, I don't want to say it was scary. However, it took a lot of growth and trust for me to do that, and to go through that process, because it wasn't easy. Like, I'll definitely say that it wasn't easy. And that's a whole different story in itself. However, I listened to God and Creator within, and trusted the relationship that I have with God, and went forward with that process. And obviously, I was doing something good and righteous, because He had me targeted and held in a trafficking house. And what He doesn't know is that the person who held me in the trafficking house actually had a conscience, and was actually privately seeking a relationship with God. So he told me a lot of the truths about what Scott is involved in, and the cartels, and the trafficking of children, and how they do sexual rituals on children to siphon their life force, sexual energy. And just that thought, I it's just horrible. We don't have to siphon the life force energy off of children by doing sexual rituals on children, um, to get life force energy, or power, or wealth, or fame, or any of those things. All we have to do is have a natural connection with our creator, a direct connection with our creator. We don't have to siphon off the life force of children and do rituals. I've been teaching about national organized crime on this YouTube channel for some time now, and also about the cartels. When I started teaching about trafficking, it was right after me and my daughter were targeted, and right after I had to live and go through hell. And people mocked me and made fun of me, and I didn't care. I kept on speaking the truth. I didn't care if I was going to die or not, or if they were going to have me murdered, because my daughter is the most important thing to me ever. And then President Trump started coming out and talking about it with United States Corporation. And then now in Texas, the Texas Attorney General is talking about the cartels and trafficking. And the former Secretary of State Pompeo, he came out and told the truth that it's the largest profit in the United States corporation. So you got to think about like who's involved in all this. And it's everyday people, pastors, business people, um judges, doctors, teachers, school principals, administrators, um, psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, you name it. Um, and people really need to think about um, how fast like darkness or evil can spread. And there are people who say that evil doesn't exist. However, I can attest to anybody with my own living witness experience that darkness does exist and evil does exist. And it's not anything sensationalized. There are people that are absolute complete sadists. And apparently that's what Scott David Schaefer of Millard, Nebraska chose for his life, is to become an absolute sadist. I don't even want to give him credit of calling him a sociopath, because, that might make him incompetent to stand trial for the national tribunal, that there is a court case. And he's been evading being processed. I have sent out 2 services to have him served for the national court case and the national tribunal regarding our daughter, to save her life, I might add you. And he has evaded it, and his other cartel members and other associations, they end up getting it. His other trafficking associators, they end up getting the the mail whenever I send it, certified mail, to have him served for a national tribunal court case. And they'll just write stupid things on it like COVID, or stuff like that. So they're criminals, and they they terrorize these children to alter these children, um, to program these children. And a lot of people say like mind control isn't real. However, it is absolutely real. My mastery is in consciousness. I graduated with my mastery of consciousness in 2014. And I can guarantee you it's real. Programming has been going on, and mind control has been going on forever. That's how the CIA does what they do. That's how they program the soldiers for war. Anybody who goes like into the Army or the Marine Corps or the Navy, that's what boot camp is they're reprogramming them, and they're breaking them down to be able to install new programs. And that's another reason why they do these terroristic ritual abuses to children and terrorize children, and why they terrorized my daughter in this whole entire process, so they could break her down and then install new programs into her and mind control her. I have given them over 5 years. 5 years I have laid out a place of grace for them. I have just laid it out for them. Unconditional love, grace, mercy, forgiveness, acceptance. And whenever I was married to Scott David Schaefer, that was the biggest struggle, is I always let him know, thank you for the like, because I have held this truth inside for 5 years, 5+ years. And it's time to get it out, because they won't even show me the decency or respect for the life that came through my womb space. And I had to put up with Scott David Schaefer's crap the whole time we were married, and his darkness and his secrets and his lies and his abuse. And I prayed for him, and I did my job as a wife. Hey, Colin, I did my job as a wife, and I prayed for him, and I loved him unconditionally. And I told him that his light was just as equal to his darkness. And I told him that he had free will, and that with his free will, he can choose to do good or he can choose to do evil. And I always let him know that his light is as great as his dark. And now all he chooses to do is run and hide and evade and live in the shadows. And that's what these dark workers of iniquity do, is they live in the shadows. The child pornography industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry in the United States corporation alone. And we need to start talking about it because it's unacceptable. Scott David Schaefer needs to contact me. And I sent both him and my daughter emails before I did this live, and I let them know, and I gave them fair notice that I was calling this out and I was shining the light on the darkness, and they've had over 5+ years. I am probably the most loving woman that I've ever known. I'm probably the most sound-minded woman in my whole entire family tree. And I have given them so much love and so much grace and so much mercy and goodness to just contact me. I have given Scott plenty of opportunity to choose a family therapist or a family counselor or a family reunification therapist, and he does not even respond to me. At this point, he is looking at not just local crimes and county crimes. He is looking not just at state crimes and not just federal crimes, but he is looking at organized crime and human rights violations and war crimes nationally. And he is so ashamed of his, let's just call it for what it is, his sins and perversions and his crime on humanity, that he will not even contact me. He will not even send me an email. And I have given him the opportunity to contact me privately. I have sent them several emails saying, let's handle this privately. Let's handle this privately. Show some respect for our family tree and our lives is sacred to handle this privately. And no response. No response whatsoever. I have gotten one response from my daughter, and it was obvious that she has been programmed and that she has been altered and that she is under great deception and that she is mind controlled. And it broke my heart all over again. And I refuse to live with a broken heart. I think that that's why I titled this Happiness, because I have 3 degrees. One of them is a mastery in consciousness. I think a private detective might be in order here. Should I start a GoFundMe? I I have not done that. I have gotten by with like God's good graces and prayer and a couple of close friends. I've actually been staying alive and healing for the last 5 years. Because not only did he have me held in a trafficking house, but he also had me targeted another time as the protector of the children. And I have been through so many different abuses. They also paid somebody to destroy my vehicle. So I have been without a vehicle as well. I have contacted the local police, and Omaha, Nebraska is such a corrupt town. Omaha, Nebraska is known for being highly pedophilic in nature. Omaha, Nebraska is known for like having a lot of like Satanist, and let me just say this, and this is fair and this is balanced and this is very practical, but it's no secret that the Satanists have formed is an organized religion. I'm not trying to be like all sensationalized or anything, or oh, the devil, or the devil made me do it, or it was Satan, or any of that crap. However, it's obvious if we look anywhere in the news or on any reports or on any articles that the Satanists have formed as an organized religion. And from what I know, their value system is that they can do no wrong and they could just get by with doing whatever they want. And so Scott seems to have that mentality, because the last thing I heard from Scott is he told me, I haven't done anything wrong. Those were his last words to me. I haven't done anything wrong. And from what I know about the moral values of the Satanist is that's how they feel. They can do no wrong. They can do sexual abuse on children. They could commit crimes on people. Oh, and if you have like one so-called Satanist or somebody who thinks that pedophilia and incest and ritual abuse and child trafficking is normal and healthy, then you have a whole child trafficking ring right there. That's how easy it is. For experience, and something that I lived with my own life experience. All you need is one so-called judge he was actually just administrating your family estate. You don't, and most people don't know it because most people are uneducated. So they don't even know that the judge is merely just an administrator and the court is a privately held corporation, and that the judge slash administrator is administering your family estate. So all you need is one administrator in this court who is pedophile friendly or, involved in child trafficking and loves child pornography or attends the child trafficking voyeurism parties or adulteration entertainment parties, and who has friends and who is a part of that. And you have a whole entire child trafficking ring right there in that one room. And of course, you don't have any court watchers. People just don't go and sit in the courts all day and really investigate and see what's going on. And so that is how evil can take over that quickly. It is just a fact. It's not a conspiracy. It is a fact. And this is the reality that we need to look at that is going on in our world today. Maybe I will just create a crowdfunder. I have an artist friend, and I talked to her about this. And I said to her, worst case scenario, I can create a crowdfunder and a crowd fundraising. And what a lot of artists will do is they will give away different benefits. They call it like perks or prizes, for like every dollar amount that people donate to a crowdfunding campaign. And because I am a clothing designer, and because I am a professional, and because I have several degrees, and I'm an artist as well, and I've created a children's clothing line. My daughter, it was in her honor. And I also am an accessories designer. So I can offer that. And then my artist friend, she is an amazing visual artist. Everything she creates is like really real and lifelike. And so, but yeah, I'm with you, Colin. Like a private detective might be in order here. Oh, because he has hid her out. He is now hiding my daughter out at an undisclosed location. And he knows about this national tribunal. He knows because when he had me targeted and held in a trafficking house and terrorized and tortured, um, he sent me texts telling me he was not going to let me get by with claiming her in a tribunal and claiming her as my daughter, which that's evil right there in itself. And it's sadistic as it gets, to take a perfectly healthy, beautiful child whose heart is pure and loving and kind and compassionate and sensitive. And oh my God, just so precious, so precious. And then stealing and taking from a child the only non-adulterated pure love that she's ever known. It's beyond wicked and evil what these people are doing to children. And I refuse to live in silence. Most people die, and then or they take their lives, and good men who don't comply and who refuse to be complicit and don't bow down to this wickedness, it's straight up wickedness, then they'll usually torture them too, or they'll sodomize them through organized crime and like try to break them down through sodomy. They love their sodomy rituals. like the cult with women branding themselves. I heard they purposely give blackmail material to join. Yeah, the only reason these females are even branding themselves is because they're under mind control. And it's not that hard to do. Just like it takes 30 days to create a new habit. I'm a life coach, and like everything like self-motivation, self-determination, um, mind, body, spirit, health. I have 32 tests, 32 more tests before am before I finish my international bachelor of ministry. So I'm not an uneducated woman, and I know what I'm talking about. It takes 30 days to create a new habit. So just like it takes 30 days to create a new habit, 30 days is all you need to absolutely tear somebody down, break them down through rituals or terrorization or abuse or trauma, and then reprogram them. And that's easy to do, but people who are doing to children is pure evil. It's wickedness. I had a daughter that loved her mama. I mean, the bond that we had was so amazing and so incredible that people didn't even understand it. There was a time where we were speaking in public about love, and I would talk about love, and at the same time she would just write it on a whiteboard, and she would do like all the pictures and the visuals, and I didn't know what I was going to say. She didn't know what she was going to draw, but because we were so bonded spiritually and mentally and emotionally, we were able to do these things, and it just, to us it was so easy. However, like other people were so inspired by us. They just thought it was just so remarkable. When I had my own community show, I've directed, created, funded, organized, um, my own show. There was like a clothing closet where we gave away free clothes. There was water, there was like vendors, there was entertainment, there was an art area for parents to do art with their children. I mean, all kinds of things. It was amazing. And I gave my daughter the choice to do whatever she wanted to do because she is naturally a leader and intelligent and gifted and just an absolute polymath, amazing child of God. And she decided she wanted to run a Coke, soda, snack, popcorn stand because she was very money motivated, and she is absolutely successful. Um, and it's and this is not funny. This is the tragedy of how these sickos work and how they do their organized crime. Is they got together and they said, I never bought my daughter food, that I never fed her, and they're willing to make up anything so that they can get their hands on children to do their degenerate sins. And in this case, like, they completely like railroaded me, slandered me, character assassinated me, everything, you name it. I've spent the last 5 years actually recovering, because the trauma that they placed onto me and the horrible things that they have done to me are ungodly, absolutely ungodly, criminal, unrighteous. And for Scott David Schaefer, to his last words to me were, I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't done anything wrong. Yes, you have done wrong. Like, yes, you've done wrong. You've hurt me. You've hurt our daughter. And we can't just go around hurting anybody that we want to, and there not being any restitution. We can't just go around living in a lawless society. I'm in Texas. People know that the cartels are like taking over. People know that human trafficking is huge, but as long as it doesn't hit them and it doesn't hit close to them, meaning like their child or like their husband or their wife, they don't really care. Like, that's people are apathetic, and it could be the tragedy like of our society. Um So yeah, so leaving the cult and leaving the darkness and creating happy. That's what I'm going to do, because I've sat back and I've waited for my daughter to contact me. I have contacted Scott David Schaefer many, 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 many times, and her spring break is coming up. I have told him to send my daughter home to me for spring break so that we can reconnect. I have I have 2.3 miles away, I have an amazing therapist who specializes in family restoration. And that's one of my specialties as well as natural trauma care. So between me and this other therapist, I'm pretty sure we got everything under control with me and my daughter. But Scott doesn't want her to come home because if she were to come home, then she could be deprogrammed. And then if he deprograms her, then he loses control because sadists love their domination and control, and if they don't have domination and control, then, you know, wonder what would happen if he didn't have it. But according, to Scott David Schaefer, my daughter doesn't deserve a mom. My daughter doesn't deserve or want a family. And it's beyond that. Is she gonna be owned by the free and accepted Masons? Is she gonna be owned by the Satanist, or does she belong to God? How is this gonna work in this National Human Rights Tribunal? I'll put the case number to the National Human Rights Tribunal and the national case in the description below. It very well could be time to do a GoFundMe crowd fundraiser. It's been 5 years. I've been in survival mode. My parents are involved. That's really sad too. But however, I learned that I guess my father's a part of the free and accepted Masons or the Satanist or whatever this organized brotherhood is that is running the child trafficking and the child pornography industry. And of course, as soon as I started speaking out about it and educating the public about it as the protector of the children, I learned who my biological father really is. And that was tragic. Like extremely, extremely sad. And then to know that my biological mother covers her ritual abuse to children and the adulteration of children and rituals of children and to her it's normal. It's really sad. But these people love their material possessions as well. And they are not willing to give up their material possessions and their houses and cars for the innocence of children and for righteousness. And they proclaim to know God, but they don't, which is really interesting in itself. And I think I've mentioned this on another video that I know more Baptists and Pentecostals that cover for the child trafficking and child pornography industry and for people involved in it than those that I don't, which should be a wake-up call to society as well. Yeah, it was called Nexium. Yeah, it was called Nexium. Well, I'm with you on creating a private prison, because the prisons in the United States are private prisons and they're corporately owned and they're owned by judges and attorneys. And they benefit off of it and they make all kinds of money. However, it's not the traffickers and it's not the child adulterators and it's not the real criminals that usually end up there. So I'm all about creating my own economy and creating and generating my own economy as an entrepreneur. And I'd be happy to build a private prison with you, Colin. And if it turns out that this human rights tribunal really is for good people and people who like love their families and love children and like are not into like trafficking and sexual abuse and ritual abuse and torture and crimes and trauma and terrorism and torture, and it really is like a good spirit filled wonderful thing, then I would be happy to prosecute all war criminals who are trafficking and hurting women and children and good men. you mentioned that before prosecuting them, and I would be happy to prosecute as well. It would take a lot of work, and I'd have to learn a lot. And I've only been studying the law of nations for my scholarly work for the last 3 years. However, I know I'd be good at it. And at this point, I can spot people that are adulterating and sexualizing children pretty darn easy. It doesn't take long for me to be around them before like their inner demons will come out at me. They'll come out at me by like attacking me or projecting me or like falsely accusing me of things. Like I've been falsely accused of being a Satanist. Like that one was hilarious and obvious. And obviously that person had their own issues and needs to purify their own hearts and like go deep into themselves about their purpose and why they're here and get right in their own heart. So leaving the darkness, leaving the cult, leaving cultures that are dark, leaving cultures that sexually abuse children and molest children and adulterate children and murder real women who protect children from ritual abuse and adulteration and pedophilia and incest. Um, yeah, I've been out of that now. I didn't even know I was in it, but apparently I was in it whenever I was growing up. I didn't even know I was in it. However, now I knew that growing up I was in it. And I've been out of it for, I guess, since 2016 when Scott threatened to have me murdered. So I've been out of it now for 5 years. Although, like, I've been putting together the pieces of my life for that time as well. And so once you escape or somebody escapes, because there's always out, and maybe somebody who's a part of another cult or sex cult or ritual abuse cult or anything is watching this, some group think, organized, group think to where they think it's normal. There was an article I was reading the other day. It was like, it was a cult called the Children of God. I was like, oh, that's horrible because we are like the true children of God, and somebody took that and perverted it too. But I was reading an article and like the people who were raised in that, like it was just normal for parents to be having sex with their children and children to be having sex with their parents and like for all the members to be having sex with each other. And yeah. So there's a way out. There's always a way out. There's always a way out. There's always a way out. And I'm really upset with Scott because he's always known that I love God. Scott has always known, always known that my daughter is my life. He knew from the beginning that I love God and that I wanted to have like a real family life and um he's responsible for that because he should have told me that he was a free and accepted Mason and part of the cult brotherhood and that he was into rituals on children. So he's responsible to God for that. And he's going to have to be responsible for that. But I'm not going to let him steal my happiness anymore. And he is going to be sending my daughter back home to me. Um, and he is going to be responding to me. And if not, he's just going to be responding to God because he can't hide forever. He's just living in the shadows and thinking that nobody's going to find out who he is or what he's all about. He has my daughter hiding out at an undisclosed location. He's moved her out of the house and he has her in like a private condo, which kind of creepy in itself because she doesn't have a mom and he has her in a private condo and she is still a child. So it's kind of creepy. It's almost like he's her pimp. And I'm just going to say it. That's creepy. Because she deserves a mom. Um, he's so messed up in the head. He's so sick. Like he's mentally ill and he's terribly sick and he's a sadist. Well, yeah, you say like get them to rat out their abusers. The truth sets us free. The truth makes us free. And what they do is they encourage the children to keep the secrets. And they're basically like blackmailing them, giving them money, giving them so-called like name brand clothes. Because trafficking is big money, right? So these children, like, okay, like people would say, your daughter is not trafficked. She's with her father and she's doing fine and she's going to school and she's making good grades and she has friends. And trafficking comes in all different kinds of forms. If your parents are high up in the cartels and your parents are high up in the trafficking system, then you're that child who you are wearing the name brand clothes, you go to the sporting events, you get special vacations, and that's how they keep the children in the brotherhood or the association or the occult, because that's pretty much like how my life was. As as long as I didn't know the secrets and as long as I didn't know that I was in this cult or this brotherhood secret society organization that was involved in the child pornography industry and the trafficking industry, um, you know, my biological father didn't have a problem helping my car if I needed my car fixed, or, like, they if as long as you stay in the cult and you're under their brainwashing and you're under their mind control and you don't know anything about their secrets, then they make sure that you have a pretty decent life. However, in my case, as soon as I started catching on to what was going on and I started educating the public about these matters, then, you don't they make sure that you have nothing. My biological father would not even take me to the local car title office after they paid somebody to destroy my vehicle just so I could get the title to my car because it was damaged and no longer running, so I could sell it. And he was only 15 minutes away at the time. And I had to pay somebody on Craigslist to take me, even though my biological father, who pretends to know God, like he likes to talk about God, and he lets people think that he's a Republican and that he's all about God. However, he's not. He is a piece of crap. Um, but he was 15 minutes away, and he would not even take me to the car title place to get the title for my vehicle. And I ended up having to, like, post an ad on Craigslist, and I paid a guy on Craigslist. And he was nice on the way and he was nice on the way back, but then when he dropped me off, he asked me if I would do sexual favors on him. And of course, I responded to him and told him I'm not a prostitute. However, like, my dad, my father, he's not a dad or a father because real men don't do these things or put their daughter in these situations where they could be harmed. He's responsible for that because a good father is going to protect their children. My parents live on, like, a $500,000 or $600,000 property, and they have a private apartment next to the house on their land. And I have asked them if I could just stay in the private apartment on their land until I can get my business going, and until I graduate with my International Bachelor of Ministry. And of course, they're not going to do that because they're involved in the trafficking industry and the child pornography industry. And so what they do instead is they tell people that I'm crazy and I'm mentally ill and to pray for me. However, I'm getting my International Bachelor of Ministry, and one of my specialties is helping people heal from sadistic ritual abuse and any type of mental abuse or emotional abuse or physical abuse or spiritual abuse or organized religious abuse or any type of cult abuse. As well as life coaching as well, and helping people connect to their gifts and talents and their purpose and why they're here. But yeah, children definitely need to come out and tell the truth. My daughter has a safe place with me. They can't do anything. My biological father sent me some random email that just said, "You are free now." Okay, what did you have to do to free me, Dad? Because according to the Word of God, where the Spirit of God is, there is freedom. So, I was free before you said that I was free. Secret societies and satanic cults are created. Hi, Brian. Welcome. Hi, welcome. I think this is your first time here. Um, welcome. Welcome. Secret societies and satanic cults are created or infiltrated in order to locate and recruit such people as members of cults, and other secret groups are more easily manipulated due to their cryptic belief system, self-importance, and illusory pride. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. That they have like this interesting thing where they do have this illusion, this grandiose like pride. And I've also noticed that they target guys who like didn't really have like their dads around or like a father figure. The Scott in my story, his father was never around and left his mom at an early age, and his mom worked all the time. And so the Scott in my story, he was raised by like his friend's parents. And so I think he was targeted at an early age, and he lives in Omaha. And if anybody does any research on Omaha, like Omaha has been taken over by the pedophiles and like the satanic cults and organized crime and cartels. And it's pretty much intergenerational ritual abuse and intergenerational trauma out in that area. Colin says mentally ill card is their favorite. Yeah, that they use that one and crazy and mentally ill. If they can't control you, and if they can't dominate you, and if they can't control your mind, then you're crazy or you're mentally ill. That's definitely like their go to. They love gaslighting and slander. Brian says rape and sexual molestation experiments on young children are based on satanic ritual abuse and are truly the stuff of nightmares. The horrific torture and sexual abuse of children, also called satanic ritual abuse, has been a key component in the creation of mind control slaves. Finally, somebody else who's educated. Yes. Like I've definitely been putting this out there. And that's what they're doing. They start with like simple molestations, whether it's like touching a child inappropriately or touching their breast. They love the sodomy rituals. They love doing things having to do with sodomy, and they act it out in the form of theater. This is what a free and accepted Mason told me. He said they act everything out in the theater and play and drama, which goes back to their grandiose, self pride, and they just think that they can get by with anything. And people need to know exactly what they're all about. But it is the stuff of nightmares. I know because I've lived this. I know because in 2016, when Scott David Schaefer told me he was going to have me murdered or to have me placed as a political prisoner of war if I didn't put my daughter on a plane. And then about a year after that, like we went back and forth, like being trafficked and ritually abused. And my daughter's just terrorized. One day she came out of Scott's house and she ran into my arms and put her head into my chest and was just crying and screaming, saying, "Mama, mama, 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 I just want it to be over with." And then also there was a time where like I went and I like touched her leg because I was talking to her, and she told me not to touch her leg because it hurt. And I said, "Wait a minute, since when did mama's touch like hurt you?" Because we always had a bond in a relationship to where we hugged, or like I would touch her on the shoulder, or I would like put my hand on her leg whenever I was having like moment to moment mother daughter conversations with her that were needed. And so it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's beyond domestic terrorization. It's war crimes. And they know what they're doing. They're sadistic individuals. And I went for a while where I didn't want to believe that like Satanism was real, because like what the media does or what they turned it into, like in the 80s or 90s, they called it the Satanic Panic, the Satanic Panic. Um, and what they did is they just get the media to sensationalize it. And I can guarantee everybody is there's nothing sensational about it, because what it actually does, the people that they're torturing or the people that they're hurting and putting through hell and forcing these living nightmares on, it breaks your sensors, it breaks your feelers. That's the way my daughter described it. She told me that Scott broke her feelers. And so they are desensitizing women and children and men who refuse to comply. to their rituals and their system and their organized abuse and their organized crimes and their lifestyle and their way of life. And so I can guarantee everybody that it's nothing to sensationalize, because there's nothing sensitive about it. It actually turns people off from their sensitivities. And the way that God creator naturally created us is to be sentient beings. That's why we have an ability to feel and taste and sense, our instinct, our gut, our intuition. And so what they're doing when they're ritually abusing children, women, and good men is they're desensitizing them to cut off their natural instincts and their gut instincts and their internal guidance system and their senses, so that they are no longer even able to determine if somebody is like good or bad, and it shuts off your instincts and your gut instincts. That's what they're doing. Satanic ritual abuse has been a key component in the creation of mind-controlled slaves. Yes. You're in Barcelona, Spain, seeking asylum. Let me write that down. Pencil. Paper. My email address is SheThatExists@protonmail.com. They started targeting me in 2016 whenever I started speaking out, and educating the public. However, um, I'm on to their tactics. And I don't know if you were here, but yes, Scott David Schaefer did have me targeted and had me like held at like a holding house, like a trafficking holding house, whenever he found out that I was going before a National Human Rights Tribunal to claim my daughter internationally according to wartime law in a human rights tribunal. And I do plan on putting the case number for the Human Rights Tribunal in the description box, and people can go and look at it to see, you know, what they think, if it's real, and maybe contact the Human Rights Tribunal and say, hey, what's this? Because we need to know if these things are real. If not, they're just going to keep on getting by with more and more and more evil. But yeah, Scott David Schaefer did target me and had me held in a trafficking house when he knew that I was going to claim my daughter in a National Human Rights Tribunal. And he even sent me text like telling me he wasn't going to let me claim my daughter. He wasn't going to let me get by with, you know, doing the right thing for my child or her even having a mother. And then, yeah, they did target me, and they targeted me for a while. Let's just say that. Um, and then I got that random email from my biological father that said, you're free now. And they can't say that I'm crazy or mentally ill anymore, because Texas, where I'm at, and I don't live in Fair anymore. Texas has come out, and the senator and the Texas attorney general, they've published on their websites a creative strategy to end the cartels and to end human trafficking in Texas. And I think it's great that they're taking lead. I'd love to be an educator for them to educate the public. However, what they are missing is they are missing their strategic plan in Texas to shut down the child pornography, voyeurism, so-called entertainment industry, because it's all connected. Colin, I used to feel that my daughter was welcoming death. What the hell do these bastards do to these kids when they won't go to anyone, even when they are surrounded with people to disclose to? That's my question too. What the hell? And we got to shine the light. We got to call them out by their names. We have to make sure that they are forced to come to the light, because they love to hide in darkness. The scriptures are clear that we are to shine the light on the dark, and the dark doesn't like the light, because when the light is shine on them, that they are seen, and that the darkness doesn't want to be seen. And that's why they hide in the shadows, and that's why they do their work in secret. And that's why Scott David Schaefer is not on Facebook. He's not on Twitter. He's not on Instagram. He's not, um, he's on LinkedIn. He does have a LinkedIn page. But I think that like they have to put themselves out there somewhere so that people know who they are. And the business that he's associated with is called Auto Cartel. So it's like right there in the name, cartel. He also has on there that he's a mercenary. I mean, he doesn't hide it. He also calls himself a light bright artist, which, like, what's a light bright artist? Like, is he setting off bombs? Like, I'm not really sure. Um, and then he says he's the guy taking credit for everything. So, like what Brian was saying, is they like have this grandiose sense of pride and that they're the end all be all of everything. And if Scott David Schaefer puts himself out there on LinkedIn as the guy taking credit for everything, then he can take all the credit for the organized crimes and the human rights violations. And he could take full responsibility for the organized crime and the war crimes and human rights violations on me and my daughter, and he could pay for it too. Complete and total restitution with that. Women and girls make better mind control victims because they are more emotionally tied to their environment. Brian, that's true because, like, for me, I was very emotionally tied to my environment and I loved my mom and dad. Love, 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 love my mom and dad. I would have, like, lived with them and lived close to them forever. That's how much I love them. So yeah, very emotionally connected. And I know that my daughter, that's a lot of the reason why she has not come forth and has not contacted me and has just not fled from that situation because of the emotional connection. And especially, with being female, we want to believe that, our fathers or that our families or those around us are, good and pure. And, we just want to believe, like, we just want to believe that they are good and pure and true. And I created a video on this YouTube that was about, what to do if you find out that the monsters are in your family tree. Like, what do you do when you wake up one day and you realize that the monsters are in your family tree, or your mother and your father and like the ones that raised you? I said, call on Yahuwah. That's the ancient Hebrew name for the creator. And so that's the most powerful name that we can call on, other than the ancient Hebrew name for the Messiah, which is Yahushua, which is I am that which self exists that delivers. And so, call on the self existing deliverer. So I did a video on that. So for those who are finding themselves in a cult, or that you're being ritually abused or you're under mind control, the way my parents would mind control me is they would tell me that nobody's going to love me except for them. Nobody would care about me except for them. And of course, it didn't matter how many degrees I had. It didn't matter what education I sought out. It doesn't matter if I gave my heart and soul as a stay-at-home mom, which I did all of those things. It was never good enough for them. The abuse was always present. They have tricks and tribunals. And what's ombudsman, Colin? Ombuds om ombudsman. I gotta write that down. Yeah, I'm just learning about the tribunals. I would love to have a good experience with the tribunal. I've actually been in survivor mode for some time, and just now rebuilding my life and my business. And I'm grateful to a couple of my two very, very good friends that have kept me alive, because my daughter deserves to have a mom that's alive. I've known since I was a young child that that I'm here to serve a higher purpose, and I've always loved God, and I've always had a relationship with God. And whenever I was 15 years old, I knew there was something deeply wrong with my home where I was living, and deeply wrong with my parents. And at 15 years old, I knew I was raising my parents. And it's kind of always been that way. I've been holding the space of grace and unconditional love for them my whole entire life, and giving them space to repent, to come back home into their hearts. And they have refused to. So I recently sent them an email and let them know that they are both unrepentant degenerates who support the child pornography trafficking industry and crimes and murder on innocent women and children and good men, and basically let them know that they are serpent seed. They chose it. We all have free will. So the title of this is Leaving Darkness and creating a life of happiness. And Brian, it sounds like you've left some things that your soul does not agree with. Um, I've watched several of your videos. Oh, that's nice because I didn't know that people actually watch them. I don't expect anybody to either. But trauma is a key component of their technology. You must depattern and deconstruct the neuroprogramming, meaning the dream modulation nightmares. Yeah, I've been going really deep into that, and a part of my international ministry and the services that I'm going to be offering are deprogramming as well. With my mastery being in consciousness, that has really, really, really helped. And then I've been doing research since 2016 to add to my mastery in consciousness. And so I know that I'm here to serve with great purpose. It's just all in God's order and perfect timing. And I just am trusting the creator for this plan, this gift called life that seems to be unfolding right now. Okay, I'll write that down, Colin. Um, the National Tribunal that I mentioned is not connected to the Crown. I want to share that. The National Tribunal that I mentioned, they have actually denounced anything connected to DC and the Crown, um, and anything connected to the central cartel banking system. So it's just, something that I felt guided to mention. Brian says that the CIA DIA contractors are using a fabricated and falsified stream of electromagnetic energy that contains a carrier frequency specifically tuned to the unique one of a kind brainwave signature of the mind control victim to interfere with your memory and thought process. They obtain the brainwave signature by moving close to the victim and entraining his or her brainwave EEG pattern. I'm glad that you brought that up, Brian. I probably should have read it slower. If anybody's watching this video in the future, they can rewind. However, when I was receiving my mastery in consciousness, and I would go to the headquarters of the school for the weekend for certain workshops. That was the first time that I heard the word entrainment, and it's not in a lot of research, and it's not in a lot of like Google searches that I've looked at. But what first stood out to me is how close the word entrainment is to entertainment, entertainment, and it is a form of mind control, and there are many ways that they do it. And if anybody researches CIA and mind control and the different projects and everything that they did, that research is out there. Like I've seen a lot of that research out there on Biblioteca Page or something. I'll have to find it again and post it in the description box. But we are magnetic frequency beings, and that's just a matter of fact at this point. We are electromagnetic frequency beings, and truth, think about like truth. If you get it into hands where people do dark things with it or evil things with it, or for people to do good things with it. Tesla, he was a scientist who knew that we were electromagnetic frequency beings, and he did good things with it. Then the CIA got a hold of the same truth, and um, they started doing negative things with it. So yeah, that is what they're doing, is like tuning into the brainwave frequency, and that's what they're doing with the radio through the airwaves. And that's why they started tuning music to different frequencies, and 432 hertz is like the low frequency, but on the radio they specifically tune the music that plays on the radio to a frequency to distort people, and to cause distortion into their brain waves to disassociate them. And so we're looking at something that is being done right now on a mass level right now in society. This isn't, and I want to make this clear for anybody who sees this video. This isn't something like, oh, okay, just a satanic ritual abuse victim is experiencing this. Okay, well, I'm not a satanic ritual abuse victim, so this does not apply to me. No, this applies to everybody. It applies to everybody. And that's why awareness and education is key right now. I do not even listen to the radio. I hardly ever watch TV. I used to not watch TV at all. Now I'll just watch it sometimes, but I could see the programming clearly. I've kind of been up close to the entertainment industry because I had my own show. But when I had my own show in the community show, like I wasn't aware of all of this, and so now looking back, 2020, hindsight being 2020, I can see things differently now. So, those of us who are coming to the conclusion that that's a lifestyle that you don't want to live, keep it simple, right? It's not a lifestyle that I want to live. And I choose to be able to think freely, to deliberately create from a place of consciousness instead of unconsciousness. And so that's kind of what this video is about. Like, I should seek asylum abroad in Europe if I'm targeted by the shadow government. Well, I think it's really important that we shine a light on them and expose them. And what I want to share about that is they're just a corporation. I have heard them called the shadow government. However, what I know about them, and I stay grounded as much as I can. If I really like let everything get to me about everything that's going on with media, and how, because what everybody does is they sensationalize everything. And that's the thing that gets me the most, is like people need to stop sensationalizing this, and they just need to get in their bodies. They need to ground. They need to focus and breathe and chill the F out, and just sit down. And, I guess I'd have to say, like, just listen. But what I learned is they're not even a government. They're privately held corporations. Okay. So once you educate yourself, and once you know how to stand your ground, and once you know how to like stand in truth and honor, because I've just been standing in truth. That's why God gave us a backbone. That's why God gave us a spine. That's why God gave us a voice, for we could stand our truth, stand our ground, and voice. Like, I've gotten to the point where, I'm sorry, everybody says we have to fight. Okay, I'll do it. Okay, I got it. Yeah, we don't have to fight. And I'm completely aware that they're privately held corporations, and I've claimed my nationality. And I have taken other steps as well, and I have gone to the National Human Rights Tribunal. Um, so if they came to me at this point, I would just let them know that they are a privately held jurisdiction, and they don't have any jurisdiction over me, because they're a privately held corporation. And um, I would say other things as well. Um, However, that is probably a whole different video. And I think that would not be a video. I think it would be a private class that I taught for those um, who are aware. However, Brian, I will connect with you and we'll talk about your asylum process. However, I'm not leaving this place without my daughter. And I feel like that God has created me here to stand my ground as a child of God, and to anchor myself here in this place um, for such a time as this. And if Texas is coming out publicly with the Texas Attorney General and the senator, and they're trying to come up with a plan to end trafficking in the cartels, and they're for real, then one of them can hire me independently and privately, because I'm a great educator whenever it comes to these things, and the public deserves to know the truth. And one of the things that we have to do is we have to dissolve all the fear. And people don't need to fear a shadow government, because they have no power, they have no control, they have no authority. And when we know the word of God and we're aware of what the word of God is speaking about, when it's speaking about like the different principalities, um, then it dispels a lot of that fear and mind control programming, because there's a lot of fear porn out there. And that's what kept me silent, like, for a while, is all the fear porn. I was, like, so afraid if I even speak, like, what's gonna happen? However, God has commanded us to use our voices, and, if I'm here to dispel the fear porn, then I'll do that too. However, the so-called shadow government is not a government. They are, privately held corporations and, organizations that have just gotten out of control. And if a few good attorneys or a few good private attorney generals would file some lawsuits on these organizations, then it would nip that in the bud here pretty soon. And the free and accepted Masons and the so called shadow government, that's not a shadow government, which is just an organization and a privately held corporation, they're not the only ones that are absolutely out of control. There are other organized religious groups that are forming. I recently just moved out of one. Supposedly, these people were helping people who, like, supposedly were being trafficked. But what it was is it was an organized religious cell group that was forming. And oh my God, they were terribly cult minded. And as soon as I let them know that I didn't want to join their organized religious cell group that they were forming because it was not love based, they started targeting me and committing hate crimes on me and targeting me. And I mean, that just happened recently here at the end of this past year. And so it's not just the free and accepted Masons. It's not just the cartels. I mean, this is going on everywhere, and not just in the United States corporation. It's absolutely international at this point. So I say we stay grounded and anchor where we are and just shine the light of darkness, and teach people from a really grounded, truth based module. Um, Once you become dependent, you believe their impulse injections are your own on the system's output, or they believe your response to it are consistent. They will begin to fabricate subconscious responses. They will pretend are indicators of honesty, dishonesty, positive recognition, anxiety, and they will use these impulse injections to convince you that the fabricated responses are your own. Yes. 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 Simply put, when we are dependent on them, the private corporation, for our source or our income, and for our knowledge or for our way of being or for our life, um, then they do um, just kind of convince people that, like, their responses are their own. I created a video called Money Master's Course Money Consciousness. And it's basically a video to help connect people to their source, to connect people to the one true living God within, so people don't have to be dependent on a so-called government or on a privately held corporation or on a shadow government for their peace, for their prosperity, for their housing, for their shelter, for anything in life. And once people deprogram themselves from seeking outside of themselves for their source, whether it's a government or a privately held corporation or anything like that, then that dissolves all of the programming that you mentioned as well, and the responses that you mentioned. Yeah, anytime we depend on something outside of ourself, it will begin to shape our thoughts and our behavior. And I teach that in my master's course on money consciousness. I actually mentioned that. And that's why it's so important to go within and connect to God within, which is our true source. And then our thoughts and will not be manipulated and shaped, and our behavior and our emotions will not be manipulated and shaped. And that's why it's so important to go within and connect to God within, our source, and master ourself. Is the same thing, as children. We look at our parents as gods, and providers, and we allow as children our parents to manipulate our thoughts and emotions and program us and mind control us. And then, for me, I grew up and I realized, like, they had total control and possession over me, and especially emotionally, like you mentioned, they only had to say one thing to hurt me, and emotionally it was just devastating because, everything I did to earn their love, um, or get their respect, or to get them to be proud of me was not enough. And they had that emotional power over me. So, yeah. So yeah, it can be our parents, it could be a school system, a government, a privately held corporation. I've seen people turn their minds and their hearts and their souls over to a privately held corporation that they work for. Um, I mean, my gosh, my biological father was a Vietnam veteran, and we have all these Vietnam veterans who believed so much in everything that they did, and they thought they were doing so much, for the United States or their country. And now they're finding out that it was in vain, and that the United States is just a corporation. So when we turn our life force and our minds and our hearts, outside, and we give ourselves over to that, then it's always going to turn out absolutely devastating. So I'm in Texas. I'm in Texas. Born and raised. Born and raised. Texas born, Texas proud. So, okay, so once we wake up from this, and we say that we want to live freely, and we want to be free mentally, we want to be free emotionally, we want to be in control of our own mind, we want to be in control of our lives, and we're more conscious and aware of what's going on in the world in which we exist. How do we create happiness for our lives? Because we know all this is going on. We know that we have two choices, that we can go back to these old ways of being and these old ways of life that are no longer serving our families, no longer serving us individually, no longer, obviously, it's not bringing us happiness or peace or contentment. So where do we go from here now that we've left these ways? Police. That's a whole nother video, but no. The police are another privately held organization. A lot of them are free and accepted Mason, and they're here to hand out tickets, and I guess like unlawfully arrest people if they don't have car insurance. Other than that, though, they're not really supporting or protecting life, from what I've experienced either. I'd love to educate them. I'd love to educate them about rights. I'd love to educate them about nation building. I'd love to educate them about the importance of claiming a nationality. I would love to educate them about how the United States is a privately held corporation and it's not a country or a nation. Um, yeah, I'd love to be able to educate them, um, because they're programmed too, for the most part, because they're not going inward, connecting to the God within, which is their source. So they're subjected to the programming as well. Works the same way for everybody. Works the same way for children, works the same way for men and women, and it works the same for anybody, no matter what profession that they're in, which is why I teach self-mastery and why I am a life coach. And self-mastery is one of my specialties, is also deprogramming, as well as natural healing from trauma and ritual abuse. And my mastery is in consciousness, and I have done a lot of research into the entrainment that Brian speaks about. And I've done a lot of research in neuroscience. I started studying psychology whenever I was 15, and systematic torture and ritual abuse. Exactly, it marries science and the occult, and, even people, though, who, like, go into boot camp. Like, my father was a Vietnam veteran, so he has been through systematic torture and ritual abuse, just being in Vietnam and being a veteran, and he doesn't know it, but he brought the war home. So I grew up, like, in the Vietnam War, even though we were in the United States, because he was still under that ritual abuse and that trauma and that mind control, and he never got any help, and he's pretty often out there today, and, he calls evil good and he calls good evil. So, and he's unrepentant, so I'm only laughing about, you mentioned, like, the astronaut. I watched a video with, oh god, who is that astronaut who, like, supposedly, like, flew to the moon or whatever? I watched a video where Buzz Aldrin, and, just Buzz Aldrin's facial expressions in this video, whatever, I was watching him, like, it was so obvious that he knew that the whole astronaut and the moon flight and, like, everything was such a lie, and how he couldn't believe people are still buying into it. Trauma-based mind control works the opposite of the movie Clockwork Orange. Imma write that down because I haven't seen that movie. Hopefully this video will help people realize that, it's it's not a conspiracy, um, and I'm happy to be able to share from my own life experiences and an educated, grounded, perspective. I've deprogrammed myself, I've cleared my own trauma. Like I said, I've been clearing my own trauma from attempted murder and being targeted and trafficked, for the last 5 years, and happy to say that I'm finally am back to myself, which is why I'm putting my services out there finally, and, completing my International Bachelor of Ministry. CIA and Department of Defense operatives use the technology to try to turn a good person into a bad person or a bad person into an evil person. I'll watch it. I'll try to find where I could stream the movie or find it. A peaceful person into a violent person who will inflict damage and destruction. Hi, Tim! Hi, Tim! A peaceful person into a violent person who will inflict damage and destruction on their community, family, etc., on command, such as trigger stimuli. Brian, I want to ask you that. Is this what they're doing to the Black Army super soldiers? Because Scott David Schaefer, he's under that Black Army super soldier programming. And literally, when I saw him last, um, whenever I saw him last, um, he definitely was, like, being mentally controlled and targeted. I literally saw Scott David Schaefer switch, like, into 3 different personalities when I saw him last. One personality was, like, a broken, wounded inner child that was, like, crying and he couldn't, like, contain himself. Another personality that I saw him turn into was Adolf Hitler. He said he was going to be Adolf Hitler and he was going to dominate and control, every aspect of my life. And then this other personality that he turned into was a hardcore killer murderer. And I told him that he almost murdered his own daughter's mother. I was referring to myself, and he said that if he would have murdered me, I would have only been collateral damage in his war. And I hope my daughter is watching this, so she can see that her mom is absolutely healthy, that she could see that her mom is absolutely of sound mind, that she could see her mom is absolutely brilliant, and she could see her mom is educated and living her purpose in this world, and standing for truth and justice and love and honoring God and honoring her life as sacred, honoring my life as sacred, and honoring other people's life as sacred, um, as a child of God and one who has always loved Creator God. So, yeah, but that's what I'm wondering. I need to watch Clockwork Orange because it sounds like that's what they've implanted all these different things into Scott Schaefer. And I've tried to get Scott David Schaefer to leave the cult or the brotherhood and just to walk away. And I've let him know how the scriptures like promise that there's always a way out, there's always a way of escape. Um, a secret society or a cult or a corporation or a brotherhood or a three-letter acronym, they don't have the power to control life and death. Only God has the power to control life and death. Tim saw the movie. Colin says it's Stanley Kubrick. Um, Kubrick directed the fake moon landing. Tim acknowledged my excitement. Have not heard from Tim in forever. It's so I was thinking about you the other day, Tim. Brian says, do you have a good support network? That's very important for targeted individuals. Well, I would say I do now. I would say when I was keeping silent and I was kind of hiding and I was in survival mode and I was trying to stay alive and I was recovering myself, I would say I didn't. However, now that I've recovered myself and I have um, done what I need to do to get back to myself, and I'm out here doing my work and I'm in my profession and I'm answering my calling without like any fear and I'm fulfilling my purpose and I'm almost done with my international bachelor of ministry. And a couple nights ago I kind of gave my first international ministry message as a reverend, even though I still have like 30 something more tests to take. And it was a message to of love and repentance, and to the cartels and to the traffickers and for those in the child pornography and adult and child adulteration entertainment film industry to come out from the darkness and to be separate and to come into the marvelous light of God. And Colin was present and we held space together for those who are wanting to walk away from darkness and come out of darkness, who are ready to repent. So I have a feeling that those who are ready will continue to come out and more will appear and we'll be able to create massive impact for the world and to let people know that there's a more excellent way. The objective is to turn the trauma-based mind control victim into a weapon who will inflict destruction on others or who will self-destruct. The amount of damage and destruction the trauma-based mind control victim inflicts on his community and upon others is an important metric for determining the effectiveness of the CIA and DoD's research and development behind the cognitive warfare strategies which trauma-based mind control is based upon. Yes, I have seen that. They either inflict destruction on others, which is what Scott David Schaefer has been programmed to do, or they self-destruct, and they will inflict the self-destruction programming as well as the suicide programming. I have seen and noticed that and experienced that as well, and I've had to deprogram myself from things. Um, Scott David Schaefer is the one who is holding my daughter hostage and who has traumatized her, who was my ex-husband, although I do not consider him to be a husband. I consider him more to be a criminal fraud, domestic terrorist, organized criminal warmonger who frauded me and my daughter out of 17 years of life. And I did a background check on him and learned that he is a convicted felon. And so I am now saving money to file for an annulment because where we were married in the state of Texas, Texas allows for filing for an annulment based upon fraud. And he has frauded me out of my life. And he's frauded me and my daughter out of our God-given purpose and peace and happiness to live a peaceful, beautiful, purpose-filled life for God. And he's also from Omaha, Nebraska, and Omaha, Nebraska is known for satanic ritual abuse. And I think he was targeted as a child because he's a part of the cartels and the Free and Accepted Mason Brotherhood out there in Omaha. And I think he was targeted as a child. I think he was probably sodomized as a child and ritually abused in a child, because what's been going on in Omaha is intergenerational, and it's been going on for a while. He is also one of the founding members of the corporation known as Auto Cartel. It's in the title, Cartel. You know, they targeted him when he was really young. It's up to him, though, and his free will conscience to come out. I would say that if he really loves our daughter and he's not a criminal and he's not a sadist and he hasn't been turned over to a reprobate mind, then he should be contacting me soon. If not, then he's a criminal and he's complicit, and he needs to be fully accountable for his crimes in a war tribunal. So the suicide programming is called Omega programming. Got it. Actually, when she turns 18, she can return to her mother. That's not the full truth. Actually, I've already claimed her. Nationally, according to international law, in a tribunal, and he needs to surrender her to me. What they do is they take the child when they're young and they program them so when they turn 18, they do not want to return home to their naturally loving, non-adulterated parent. That's what the mind control is for, and the ritual abuse is for, and what the cult programming is for. To turn the child against their naturally loving, non-adulterated parent. And so even when they get to be 18, they don't come home, because it's hard to leave the cult, don't you know? And anytime she wants to leave, she's free to leave, because God has not promised her a spirit of fear, and God has not promised her that she is to live in bondage as a slave or a subject. She is born free as a child of God, and she can get in a bus or a car, and she can leave at any time. Anytime that I have gone there, they are completely afraid of me because of the Spirit of God that dwells in me. And after Scott paid somebody to destroy my vehicle, I ended up getting there another way, and they're completely terrified of me. And so they hide her out clandestinely, unlawfully, illegally. And everything that he's done is illegal. He should have already sent her back to me and contacted me and to release her as his prisoner of war, although she is under mind control. So he has been evading national law for over 2 years now. She's free to leave at any time. She does not have to wait until she's 18. I do not subject myself to any type of private corporate law or any type of free and accepted Mason statutes or organizations or Masonic Brotherhood statutes. According to God, she's free now. And according to the National Tribunal, she has been claimed by me over 2.5 years ago. And all free and accepted Masons are slaves, and Scott David Schaefer is a debt slave, and he is a subject. And he does not have any rights because he has failed in his obligations and duty to God and natural law and the law of nations. And so he actually does not have any rights to my child, because he's failed in his obligations and duties according to natural law, God's law. Yeah, that's one of the things I want everybody to know, is it's just not programming and ritual abuse to children. It's good men. Like, it's good men. And some people say, like, oh, she doesn't support men, or she only supports women and children. However, that's not true. I actually do not support females who cover for child molestation and ritual abuse and child pornography. I support good women who do not cover. The women who do cover, I do not consider them to be women, and they need to stop covering for crimes on anybody. And I definitely think that the good men who refuse to be complicit need to be supported. Colin, so when do we destroy all the Masonic obelisks and pillars and all their Horus nonsense? I suppose when we choose to. Free will. Right now, everybody has been just like sitting back, letting them do whatever they want to do, I guess. And I think when we go within and we connect to our one true source, the God within, then we will remember who we are and realize that we're not powerless. I meet a lot of people who just think that they're powerless and go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what do we do? However, once we connect to our true source within and we spend time within and connect to the God and source within, then we're no longer powerless. And that's what I'm gonna like follow up with and share with is now that we're leaving the darkness and we realize that we don't want this like to be our lifestyle and this is not who we are, and we realize this is not who we're here to become, and then it becomes a matter of creating deliberately and creating life consciously and deliberately, by design, and co-creating with God a life by design. And I say we choose happiness. And that's where I'm at right now is I'm deliberately creating, consciously, co-creating with God and creating a life of happiness. And so what I've been doing is I've been getting clear on what it is exactly that I want for my life, because I know that I do not want to be miserable and sad and letting a sadistic, torturer and child and wife abuser control my life and dominate my life and to continually hurt me with my beautiful, amazing, wonderful, brilliant, soul filled, spiritually gifted child. So I've been getting really clear on what I want. And I'm not going to run. I'm not going to live in fear. I'm not going to seek asylum, or anything else like that. I'm going to stand because that's what God, our creator, calls us to do, is stand and to anchor ourselves into the earth, as children of God. And I know where I've been strategically placed by creator God. And so I'm going to stand. I'm going to stand in honor. I'm going to stand in truth. I'm going to stand in righteousness. And I've been getting really clear on what happiness looks like for me. And what happiness looks like for me is working in my field, working in my profession, continuing my international Bachelor of Ministry degree, and continuing to work on my master's thesis and continuing to do research for my PhD. Um, and then happiness looks like for me living simply and peacefully somewhere by the water, having a roommate who's like minded, who's spiritually gifted, who's spirit filled, who's an entrepreneur and who's responding to their highest calling, and who is living their purposes on life, having an active lifestyle, getting sun, water, swimming. I love softball, swimming, staying flexible. Now that I'm getting older, I realize how important it is to stay limber. And so that's what my focus is going to be this week. And I'll come on here and do another live broadcast, to help people who want to create a life by design and to walk away from darkness, walk away from fear, walk away from programming, walking away from anything to where they're putting their power outside of themselves instead of connecting to the God source within. Because once we connect within, then all the deprogramming eventually, or all the programming eventually goes away. And anytime we like put our attention and we give our power away to something outside of ourselves, then there's going to be some type of manipulation or programming. And once we start going within, connecting to God within as our source for everything, for our friendships, for our relationships, for our finances, for our business, for our life, for our career, for our family, for everything, you name it, then we begin to see life through a different lens. And we realize that we had more power and control over our life than any of these entities or corporations that exist outside of ourselves and any of these organizations. So I don't want anybody to live in fear, because we're not called to live in fear. And once we go within, and once we connect to God within, and we disconnect ourselves from any outside forces, and we go within and know that our one true resource is the God within, then I don't know, life is just different, and it's actually more beautiful, and you realize that people don't really have any power or control over you, and that you're the epicenter of your own existence, and you can co-create with God for your life deliberately and create your life by design. So focusing on happiness and being committed to ourself and to our children. I've obviously not unlocked, the path of how to get our children back who have been stolen or who have been trafficked, or who have been carteled or brought into these free and accepted Masons or satanic societies or these sadistic societies and other types of organized ritual abuse, mind control. I call it group thought organizations. Um, However, just by speaking about it and shining the light on it, that's a major golden key. So this week is going to be focusing on happy and like what brings you happiness and inner peace. And so those of us who are coming out of this darkness in the programming and we're coming into the light of awareness, which is what God promised for us, that we would come out of the darkness into the marvelous light. And the light is awareness, for our lives, and the realization that we do have that power within ourselves and our connection to our God that lives within us, because our bodies are temple, to be able to create a really beautiful life. So Brian, I'm really proud of you for what you've lived through and what you've overcome, and the fact that you have this knowledge and you've done so much research and you've lived through everything that you've lived through. Um, for such a time as this, and the perpetually replaying over and over in each day and night in a looping pattern inside the mind of the victim via a bidirectional stream of fabricated and falsified brainwave signals. I want to say that Scott Schaefer mentioned that to me. He told me that his life was like living in a hamster wheel. He said every day it was like repeat, 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 like Groundhog Day, and he was on a hamster wheel. And so that is what he was saying. And when he told me that, I didn't know anything about the free and accepted Masons. I didn't know anything about ritual abuse or anything like that. I mean, because apparently I was living with amnesia and I'm not anymore. So, but yeah, like what you described is exactly what Scott David Schaefer of Auto Cartel mentioned to me. Um, let's see, by constant activation and reactivating of specific sets of the brain waves, rage, lust, fear, paranoia, guilt of the mind control victim, which the RNM system remotely captured, held, and is perpetually replaying over and over again each day in a looping pattern. Yeah, yeah. And I think that's where Scott David Schaefer of Auto Cartel, who is my child's father, who is running from me and running from God and running from the truth and evading the truth for his life, and who's unwilling to connect to his own goodness. Um, I think that's where he vacillates, and he stays in either in a rage or lust or fear or paranoia or guilt. And guilt is an absolute low vibration. That's why I've been holding the space for grace, for him, so that he can learn how to forgive himself, because all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. And I don't want to say, like, we've all been so-called victim, because victim means to human sacrifice in Latin. That's why I want to help Texas restructure their legislation so they're not calling people victims, because victim means human sacrifice. And the Messiah was the perfect and final sacrifice, and so we're to no longer live in a human sacrifice society. So they have to change their legislation, because if the Messiah truly is the perfect and final sacrifice, then we have to change the legislation and take out the word victim, at least change it to survivor, or one who has lived through a crime, because nobody wants to be human sacrificed. And the Messiah was the perfect and final sacrifice, and so there's no need for that anymore. But everything that you mentioned is exactly before, like, Scott went off to the deep end and left his heart and became an outright criminal. And since then, I haven't heard from him or my daughter. And those are the things that he described to me. This was in 2016. He also said, we have to do what they say. And I said to him, who is they? And then I said, I don't have to do what they say. You might have to do what they say. However, we don't have to do what they say. And he never would say who the they was. However, there are a lot of people who are apparently falling prey to the they. And I say that we not give the they any power, and we not give anything outside of ourselves and our connection with God, who is our one true source of all things, whether it's our food, whether it's our finances, whether it's for godly friendships, or relationship, or just having a really beautiful, life. Like, we have one source, and that's our creator. And the Messiah was clear that God is within, and to seek within. And when we don't go within, we go without, and we become subject to being manipulated by these outside influences. Call the outside influence the they, call the outside influence parents, call the outside influence the school system, call the outside influence the corporation that you work for, call the outside influence um, the shadow government, um, which is merely a privately held corporation and people doing bad, evil things who are owners of a corporation. And what the judges are doing is they're administrators, and they're administrating the family estate. And people are uneducated, so they don't know that that's actually what's happening. But they're trafficking people's persons on paper and the family estate to offshore trust in places like Puerto Rico or Guam or Virgin Islands. So we just need to educate ourselves, and we need to stay in our bodies and stay grounded, and not give anything outside of ourselves any power. Just truly have a connection with the God within us, the one true living creator source, and know the truth for our life. And then just keep it simple, and we know the truth, right? That's part of the battle. Like, we're coming out of mind control, we're coming out of the system, and we're coming in to a place of not living in fear and having a sound mind and power and knowing what love is. And so we know we don't want, right? Like, we don't want to live those ways anymore. We do not want to live that way anymore. That's not the lifestyle that we choose. And so as we're coming out of that, and we're coming out of the darkness, the unknowing, right? Into the light of awareness. And now that we know, then we're in this place where we are consciously deliberately choosing to co-create with God for our lives. And so everybody focus on, what is really going to make you happy, where you're going to find your peace and your joy and contentment, and to truly know what your purpose is from Creator, because we want to come from a place where we're up here to we're above the problem, right? We're above the chaos, we're above the noise, we're above the programming, we're above the confusion. And so we want lives and co-create our lives deliberately with God, with Creator from here. And the outside forces, the government, the corporation, the school systems, the people under mind control, the so-called shadow government, all the different alphabet agencies, they're operating from a lower frequency vibration from here. And so what does the eagle do? The eagle flies above, right? So we want to be like the eagle, and we want to fly above all of the distortion, the confusion, the lies, the terrorism, the chaos, the fear porn. And so we want to co-create our lives from a higher plane and be the eagle. So we're at an hour and 52 minutes, and I did not expect this. I love the fact that you all are here today. It's a blessing and a gift for all of us, and we definitely all deserve this support. We all deserve this kinship, and we all deserve a wonderful connection like this. I'm open to ideas. I'm open for any ideas on ways that, like, we can grow and we can expand, to help support each other's life, to help all of us grow. And Brian, if you need any support, please email me at SheThatExists@protonmail.com. I really appreciate you all showing up, because it is wonderful to have you all hold space, because there was a time where I would do lives or I would create videos, and I could always tell when it was like a free and accepted Mason or it was a cultist, and the things that they'd come on and say, they're like a broken record. I could predict them every single time. They're so easy to like point out, I could like smell them just by the thing that they say that they're victims themselves and or they're cultists or they're part of different associations and organizations and brotherhoods. However, I was telling Colin this the other day, a couple nights ago, is that I really feel like that we're at a place where many cultists and people who are part of different organizations um, are deciding that it's not for them. They thought that it was going to be something, and they got hoodwinked, they got lied to, they got sold a false bill of goods. And I think it's really important that we hold space for them right now, and we let them know that it's safe to come out and be separate, because we are called to come out and be separate and stand on our own. That's why we have a backbone and a spine and a voice. So I'm going to take Trusty the medicine doggy out. However, I really want everybody to focus on getting really clear what your happiness looks like for you and how you want to co-create your life with Creator God from here, because we're coming out of darkness, we're coming out of ignorance, we're coming out of mind control, we're coming out of distortion, we're coming out of lower frequency existence. And we're coming out of that darkness with more awareness, and we're educated and we have wisdom. And wow, Brian, that is so awesome. Like everything that you shared, because we're here to be the light of the world, right? And so I think we shared a lot of light today. And I think anybody who comes across this educational series and and this video, I think that they're going to be like very richly blessed. And for anybody who's wanting to come out of the darkness into the marvelous light of awareness and to live a beautiful life, I think this will give them hope. It'll give them courage. It'll help them see that they're not alone and that there's always a way out. Oh my gosh, thanks, Colin. Thanks for reminding me that Passover starts this evening. I'm focusing on really, really, really focusing on celebrating Sabbath. And I'm focusing on like Friday evening to Saturday evening. And I'm creating a course for all of us on financial breakthrough. Because a lot of us who are coming out of the darkness into the marvelous light of awareness, and connecting to our consciousness and connecting to God within, to co-create with God for our lives. Um, we've had our finances really hit and targeted, and a lot of people coming out of darkness into the marvelous light of awareness. They've lost their family, they've lost their husband or wife, they've lost their children, they've lost their jobs, and they've been hit really hard with their finances. And so I'm creating a financial breakthrough class. And one of the things that I'm making sure that I include in the class is honoring the Sabbath. And when we honor a Sabbath and we take off one day to rest, hi Scott, when we honor the Sabbath and we take off one day to rest, like it's not going to hurt us. In fact, it's going to really help us financially and bless our lives and enrich our lives magnificently by honoring that one day to rest and to honor that God has everything in control, that Creator is real, and that we are here to be blessed and as children of God and to be the light of the world, that we do not have to toil, we do not have to strive, we don't have to live in fear and like constantly like suffering. Um and people need to know, that you don't have to stay in darkness or in some organized religion that's not love based or group mind control or group thought or, in anything where they do sadistic sexual rituals on children or, you know, anything horrible like that. Like, that's never how life was intended to be, like, ever, 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 ever. Um, and so I guess I'll leave it at that. Scott, good to see you. Um, thank you all. Colin, Brian, Tim, I'm glad you're okay. You went off the radar for a while. And it's important, like you said, Brian, that we stay connected, that we create safe networks for each other, that we are a source of trust and growth and love and support and friendship and kinship. And that we continue connect in this way. And I'm gonna keep on focusing on all these different tests that I have to take for my International Bachelor of Ministry. However, I could see that I'm already, in my ministry full time, and that this is definitely I'm in it, and this is my calling, and I'm in it. And I so appreciate you all like showing up and holding space in this way. Like, y'all are awesome. Like, I really, 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 really appreciate you all in that way for that. Okay, let me write that down, Scott. On this notepad, I have recovery from religion. Religion means to like rebind, and so it's bondage. And like, I know so many people that just need recovery from religion, just because that's organized mind control, abuse, and bondage right there. I'm not religious. I just happen to have loved God my whole entire life. Shemitah, the 7-year Sabbath. Okay, I'm going to research it. That sounds amazing. A 7-year Sabbath. That sounds really cool. Okay. All right. I'm sending you so much love and care and friendship and nurture and support out there. And I'm so grateful for all of you all showing up. This is She That Exists with She That Exists Her Story channel. And I think we did an amazing job shining the light of awareness on the darkness. And there are so many that are being called out of the darkness into the marvelous light of Creator God, which is love. So to be continued. Let's see what happens. Till next time.